So I've never really been a person of much faith or spirituality. I grew up Catholic, but my mom was also into, like, she was a single lady exploring herself late in life. So, like, when Shirley MacLaine book came out, we were metaphysical, and then we just kind of, whatever, we went to a lot of workshops. And then, you know, my husband and I moved here from New York 2.5 years ago, and, you know, you kind of become, like, you get, like, woo-woo by proxy when you come to LA. Like, you know, all of a sudden you're at, like, a cocktail party, and someone's, like, swinging a watch in front of you, reading your chakras, and you're like, this is normal. Do you want a cheese puff? Really weird, you know? So all that stuff was already in place the last couple years, and then my husband and I had a rough time. It was almost like the year 2017, Herbie were shit-talking it and, like, passed on word to 2018, and 2018 was like, oh, really? 2018 was rough. On January 2nd, we found out that our beautiful house that we lived in, we'd signed a 1 to 2 year lease. We'd only been there 3 months, that they were selling it and taking it away from us, and our dog had a seizure that would be the beginning of what we would find out was a brain tumor. And over the course of 3 months, we were involved in lots of arguing about money and lots of cancer treatments and seizures, and eventually, after 3 months, a very valiant struggle, our little Chihuahua Jack Russell, Charlie, passed away. We ended up in May being kind of homeless and depending on the kindness of strangers just to get by until our house was ready in June that we found. So I find myself in this really deep, terrible depression, staying on an apartment around the corner from L. Ron Hubbard Way, where out the window is the big blue Scientology Center, right? I was thrust into it. Now, I don't know how close any of you have gotten to Scientology. If some of you are, I don't know what to tell you about everything I'm about to say. I would watch them. Okay, so first of all, they're all dressed in these horrible, highly flammable, like, Red Lobster waiter suits from the 90s. I don't know how much money this organization can truly have if they force fucking people to dress like this. Their vests are like, you know when you're like a 9-year-old boy and you have to go to a family wedding and to get that rental vest with, like, the weird silky stained back, it was like that. There's a lot of play acting. Everyone has, like, lots of keys and walkie-talkies, and they're putting out fires, but if you watch them from a window all day, you realize they're kind of like drone bees. You kind of see the same patterns back and forth. If you walk up to them talking, all of a sudden it becomes very hushed until you walk away. Or if you walk up to them, they part. It's very bizarre, and I was just, like, watching it, like, so fascinated. And I always remember one day, my husband and I were crossing the street, and we saw this young son. We were checking him out. I'll just be honest. That's why we were. He was like a hot 22-year-old. I mean, hot Scientologists at the dormitories are few and far between. We were checking out this guy, and he stopped talking to 2 other Scientologists, and he saw us looking at him and smiled, which was rare, because they're very, like, living years in New York. It's very like the Hasids. They just kind of pretend you're not there unless you're one of them. It's very strange. And he smiled at us, and we were like, oh my God, you know, recognition. And then as we passed him, we realized that he realized he had no one to talk to, and he was just frozen on the sidewalk, and he went, like, I had an idea, and then turned around and went back to the building. Like, it was the weirdest. It's like so much peas and carrots, peas and carrots, peas and carrots, background players with no lead. That's what it feels like the whole time. It's like, what scene are you girls doing? So, it was really weird, and there was this part of me, this sounds so fucked up, and especially if any of you have lost anyone you care about or a family member to a cult or someone with crazy ideas, I don't mean to make light of it, but I would watch it, and I was in such a depression that there was a little part of me that was like, man, that must be fucking nice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was in such a low, shitty place, I thought, man, to just, like, be a part of, like, a hive, a team where someone tells you what to feel and how to move forward and to hold the metal things and tell a lie and they'll take the alien spirit out of you, like, I wanted that. Do you know what I mean? I wanted my dog back, but I wanted all that. And, you know, my husband could sense that I was really depressed, and I was dealing with it. You know, he keeps everything internal and deals with it, and I'm a storyteller, so I don't shut up. And he was like, why don't you go to a therapy group? Because the cancer center where we take our drug gave us this phone number. So I called it, and the woman on the phone said, well, you have 2 options. You can do an hour one-on-one phone call with a therapist, or every 2 weeks on a Wednesday in Venice, there is a group meeting at a house, and you can go to it. And I said, I'm going to do that. That'll be great for me. I need to be with people and talk. So I drive out to the house. I'm alone. My husband's at work. And when I get there, a very nice woman answers the door. She's basically like the school nurse that you all had in 8th grade. She has a very tight perm, little polyester pants. And she welcomes me to the kitchen where she has Cheetos and Oreos and carrot sticks on paper plates on the table. A big, friendly, old salt and pepper dog greets me and leans on, like, it looks at me like literally it says, I'm the therapy dog and I'm going to be with you. And I'm like, thank you so much. And the dog's with me the rest of the fucking night, next 3 hours. I turn, there's another woman coming in. She's in her mid-50s. She has glasses and like hippy-dippy, like she knows her way around a crystal shop, you know what I'm saying? She has pigtails, which terrify me even on a child. I'm just like, you're jump roping in front of Freddy Krueger's house, it's weird. But she has that and she introduces herself and then we go into the living room where I meet the therapist, who's a very cosmopolitan version of those two women. Clearly the therapist, very warm, gives me a big hug, and I sit down. They tell me at that point no one else is coming. They also tell me they've been doing this every other Wednesday for 10 years. So it's those 3 women and me. That's it for this therapy session. I should mention surrounding us are 3 collapsible like baby pins, you know, that you would take to like a little playpen for your baby. And each one of them is full of no less than 4 elderly under 2-pound chihuahuas, 5 of which are in dresses. So there's like about 15 dogs in the room all around me, the salt and pepper one here. They start talking, telling their stories about their loss, and for 45 minutes, I don't talk. And I'm just like, this is the biggest fucking mistake in the whole world. What the fuck was I thinking doing this? And then finally the therapist turns to me and she's like, so tell us your story. And boy, do I. I was like, ah! I was like, Papa, can you hear me? I just like fucking lost it. I talked about my dog and my house, and I went back 2 years. I was like, my dad disowned me because I wrote a book. I mean, I just, woo! And I share all of this, and they're very patient, and they're really kind. In the end of it, you know, I keep telling this woman I have this idea that, like, I'm grieving over a dog, and it makes me feel stupid. Because I teach storytelling, and I've heard stories from veterans and people who've lost loved ones, and I'm like, I'm trying to, like, minimize this thing. And she said this really great thing to me. She said, you know what? People talk about, like, what does a dog mean in the world? What does a cat mean? What does the memory of any animal mean? She's like, I lost the dog I care about most 3 years ago. And every day I do a little thing. Sometimes it's holding the door. Sometimes it's, you know, putting a penny, giving my change away. Sometimes it's donating $50 to my friend's indie film. But I do it, and I do it in the name of my animal. And I think about that, and it resonates with me, and I hold on to it. And a few minutes later, I realized that they're talking, and one of them mentions when their dog they really cared about died. And she was like, well, you know, that was when all the electricity went weird in the house. And then the other woman's like, well, yeah, well, that's how she was clearly speaking to you during that time. The other woman's like, well, that's their conduit, really. And I was like, oh, are we talking about dog ghosts coming to us through appliances? Is that, because that happened fast. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't really, so I'm like, okay. Now, at this point, I'm holding Iggy, which is a little, literally, she has no teeth anymore on the bottom chihuahua. She's like a Simpson dog. It's just like an upper jaw. She's in a gorgeous lavender paisley dress that I'm gripping for my life as they move into the next part of the conversation, which is one of them mentions, like, my daughter. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute you call it daughter. I never really called Charlie our son. She's like, oh, no, you don't understand. She was my daughter. And the other woman's like, no, she was her daughter. And this was in Eastern Europe 125 years ago. And I'm like, oh, now I want to tell you all the details of this, but I kind of went into a whiteout, you know, when the car's spinning on the ice and you're just like, I don't know really what's going on. I'm going to look at this little toothless ancient beast in my lap and just sort of zone out. They were very kind. I left about an hour after that. I got home, and that night I'm laying in bed, and in this strange house, I don't know, I've been there 5 days, and I can't fall asleep, and all of a sudden the clock, it hits midnight, and it goes, and the sound machine comes on its own, and everything tenses up. I'm like, and then I catch myself, and I realize that, like, I'm looking out the window at, like, the home of the biggest cult in the world, thinking that, like, the ghost of my chihuahua is maybe coming to me through a white noise machine. And I take a few steps back, and I realize that's not what's happening. And I immediately fucking burst into tears because I want it to be true so bad, you know? And the next day, I wake up and I'm leaving the apartment, looking at the big, beautiful Scientology building, and this thing comes up on Facebook that there's a storyteller in the community. I'd never met him, I didn't know him, but that he was diagnosed with cancer and had no insurance and didn't know what to do. And I was so many thousands of dollars in debt, as was my husband over our dog. I didn't have a lot, but I was like, I have $5. And I went to the little Indiegogo thing or whatever, and I put in the $5, and when you're done, it asks you to, like, put in your name. And instead of putting my own, I put in Charlie Whitepaw, which was his name. And when I pressed enter, I was like, man, someone's gonna see this and think, man, that guy's so sad about his dog. He's like donating to humans cancer and like his dead chihuahua's name. But I don't really give a shit because, my dog is probably not coming to me through white noise machines or sound waves or through Dianetics. But I know that when I pressed enter on that phone, I felt like he was with me more than he had been in a really long time. Thanks.